Hey, I'm Andrew with 10 Minute Therapy. Today we're continuing our look at anxiety with a follow-up, sort of a part 2 to last week's video. Last week we began looking at what do I do when I experience anxiety? How do I respond to anxiety? And we're going to follow up with a part 2 of this as we examine how do I respond by winning the battle of my mind. So let's go ahead and start the timer. We'll get right to it. So in last week's video, as we examined how do I respond to anxiety, I mentioned that essentially there's two battles we have to win when we're responding to anxiety that we are currently experiencing. And those are the battle of the body and the battle of the mind. And so we looked at last week's video, the battle of the body, what we do to help slow down our physical bodies when we're experiencing fight or flight, anxiety, all the way to a full-on panic attack. And really the two things we covered were focusing on our breathing, and then near the end of the video I mentioned that we want to practice some grounding techniques, utilizing my 5 senses to help my brain recognize I'm safe, I'm okay, and here's where I'm currently at. So in moving on from there, we also need to win the battle of the mind. The idea here is simple, that essentially our mind and our bodies both need to be in harmony, in unity, in order to slow down anxious response. We can't have these two systems fighting one another. In a moment of panic or anxiety, if I slow down my body with some breathing and grounding techniques, but in my mind, I'm continuing to panic. I'm continuing to catastrophize and imagine terrible things. I'm continuing to scream in my own mind, I'm not safe. This is not good. What if this happens? What if this happens? Then what we're doing is we're having competing systems. I'm calming the body, but in my mind, I'm speeding things up again back into a state of anxiety and panic. And so realistically, we need to do both. We need to win the battle of the body by slowing our breathing, by focusing on some grounding. And we also need to win the battle of the mind by taking control of our rational thinking. And so here's how we want to sort of go about doing this, winning the battle of the mind. At the same time that I might be focusing on my breathing, I might practice the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding, or any other number of grounding or breathing techniques. Simultaneously, what we want to do is start to restore order in my mind back to my prefrontal cortex. So back in one of our earliest videos, we examined that our prefrontal cortex, this part of our brain that's right behind the forehead, is responsible for thinking rationally, planning, strategizing, problem solving, thinking abstractly. And in addition to all these thinking routines that our brain is responsible for in the prefrontal cortex, one of the other responsibilities that we know that our prefrontal cortex has is managing emotions. Now, that doesn't mean stifling emotions, disregarding emotions, just managing them, making sure our emotions don't take over and take control. What we have to recognize is that in a moment of high anxiety, all the way up to, say, a full-fledged panic attack, my emotional part of my brain, that limbic system, that amygdala response that we've looked at, is starting to take over. And the more it takes over, it pulls energy away from my prefrontal cortex, which is why we recognize that in a moment of panic, I'm not doing my most logical thinking. It's the reason we can't logic someone back into emotional regulation. So when we talk about winning the battle of the mind, what we're talking about is trying to then restore the balance of the brain to move from limbic system, amygdala response back into rational thinking. And here's the deal. Nobody can do this part for you. This is part that you need to do on your own. You need to win the battle of the body through your breathing and grounding, and you need to win the battle of the mind through practicing some rational thinking and some exercises that we'll go over here. So, in recognizing that the frontal cortex has the role of managing my emotions, then we need to lean into some logic here in a moment of panic or anxiety. Here's a simple question to ask and to think about. Think about the last time you were really anxious, really panicked, and ask yourself, what were some of the thoughts running through my mind? Was I catastrophizing? Was I taking everyday situations around me and in my mind magnifying them, making them bigger, making them catastrophes when in reality they maybe weren't that bad? Or maybe I was falling into a what if spiral. What if this bad thing happens? What if this person looks at me this way and they think this? And was I going into some what if thinking rather than rational, logical thinking? Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. I was assuming negative outcomes before they happen. Whatever the thoughts may be, chances are in a moment of anxiety and panic, they weren't the most rational. And so, as I'm practicing my breathing and grounding and slowing my body down, something I can do is examine those messages and replace them. We start with something really simple. I am okay. I am safe. Again, if I'm slowing my physical body down in a moment of panic, but in my mind I'm continuing to say these negative things, think these negative things, believe or imagine negative outcomes, then I'm having one system ramp up while I'm trying to physically slow down the other. We want to attack this from both sides. So as I'm practicing my deep breathing, slowing my heart rate down, slowing my lungs, pressing down on that vagus nerve in the stomach, and maybe at the same time, I'm looking around and feeling and listening and smelling and using my senses to ground myself. At the same time, I can deliver this message in my mind. I am okay. I am safe. There are few more powerful words that we can tell ourselves than that. I am safe. And so maybe as I'm practicing this deep breathing to slow the anxiety and the panic, I need to tell myself over and over again, I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. I need to give my mind that message that the fight or flight response that's designed to protect me is not necessary right now. In fact, it's not helpful. So in winning the battle of the body, we slow our breathing, we practice grounding. In winning the battle of the mind, we need to input some positive, safe messages. And we want to make them as succinct, as concise as possible. We don't want to have a long, convoluted monologue that we tell ourselves in the moment of panic, because let's be real, we won't remember all of that. It needs to be short, concise, and to the point. I am okay. I am safe. And I tell myself this message in my mind while I'm breathing and grounding. And better yet, if I'm in a private place like the safety of my bedroom or in my own home, I can even say that message out loud. It doesn't need to just be in my mind. Maybe I need to take some deep breaths and out loud say, I am safe. I am okay. In doing this, we're going to win both the battle of the mind and the battle of the body. One more tool I want to give you, though, here, and I think it's a really important word that we want to utilize to win the battle of the mind, to slow down anxious thinking, is simply the word no. No is an incredibly powerful word and not one that we want to overwrite. We want to utilize it, but we want to use it wisely. When I find myself in my mind thinking what if thoughts, spiraling out of control in my mind, imagining worst case scenarios and catastrophizing everyday events, personalizing messages people are saying to me, a really powerful word I can say to myself is no. No, I'm not going to think that. No, I'm not allowing my thoughts to spiral out. No, I won't go down that rabbit hole in my thinking. That word no becomes very powerful when you learn how to use it. So let's put it in the context here. If I'm having a panic attack, the first thing I need to do is sit and slow myself and focus on that deep breathing, slow the heart rate, feel the muscles loosen, press down on that vagus nerve in the stomach with that deep breathing, feel my lungs take in the oxygen and blow it out slowly. And as I'm doing that, I start to tell myself, I'm safe, I'm okay. And then maybe I catch my thoughts starting to spiral back out. Yeah, but what if? But what if this? And I say, no, no, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. No, I'm not going to think those negative thoughts. No, I don't. None of that is true. No, I'm not doing that. Right now, I'm safe. Right now, I'm okay. We have to have these two systems working together, your body slowing down, and in your mind, positive, safe messages, short and no to the anxious messages, so that we can reduce that panic attack and that anxiety back to a place of calmness and peace. As you can see, we're about out of time. So as I say each video, if you've heard anything in this video today that's helpful, if you've noticed anything that you think, man, that describes a little bit of what I've gone through, my encouragement is always go talk to a counselor, talk to a therapist, have someone to walk alongside you and work through some of this with. We'll continue our look at anxiety over our next two videos. We're going to examine top-down anxiety and then bottom-up anxiety, and that will conclude some of our anxiety videos. In the meantime, again, I encourage you to talk to someone if any of this relates to your experience or how you think or feel. In the meantime, I'm Andrew with 10 Minute Therapy. God bless.